1929. The New York Stock Exchange crashed. On Black Tuesday, $200 billion in wealth vanished. 2001. Enron went bankrupt. It was the seventh largest company in the US. $63 billion was wiped out. 2008. Lehman Brothers, the 158-year-old banking giant, was wiped out overnight. Now I'm going to ask you a question. What do these disasters, separated by decades, have in common? The answer isn't what you're thinking. Take a look at the number on the bill in your pocket right now. That number is just a promise. Central banks can print as much money as they want out of thin air to solve problems. That money was given as loans to people with no income or assets. Banks took those bad loans and wrapped them up in a shiny package. Those packages were transformed into complex derivatives. Massive insurance policies were written on top of those derivatives. And in the end, all that toxic risk was buried deep within the life savings of an unsuspecting retired teacher. One morning, he woke up and checked his account. Zero. All of this was legal. All of this was the system itself. The year is 1870. America is still young. The land is vast and boundless. The rules are unclear. And in Cleveland, Ohio, there is a 30-year-old man named John Davison Rockefeller. At that time, oil seemed like a newly discovered miracle. It lit gas lamps, powered machines, and was becoming a part of more and more people's lives every day. But the oil industry was chaotic. There were dozens of small refining companies. Prices fluctuated almost daily. There was no order. There was no efficiency. Mr. Miller, you see the chaos out there. Dozens of small refineries, prices choking each other out. This isn't business, it's suicide. We've been doing this for years, John. We're on our own, and we have our own way of doing things. What you call order is nothing more than the calm before the storm. I'm offering you a very simple, emotionless proposal. Sell your company to me. Join the Standard Oil family. In return, I'll give you cash, or even better, shares in my company. Choose to grow with me and become part of this great machine. What if I say no? What if I want to go my own way? If you refuse, Mr. Miller, then it won't become a personal matter. It'll just be a matter of math. I'll start such a price war that I'll sell it to you for less than what it costs you to refine a barrel. I can afford to operate at a loss for a year, but you won't last even a month. And when that day comes and you lock the door, I'll buy your refinery for far less than what it would cost in a foreclosure. This wasn't a threat. It was a fact. Rockefeller made secret deals with railroad companies. Standard Oil claimed it could deliver its products at a cost 40% lower than that of competing brands. What's more, Rockefeller received a commission for every barrel of oil his competitors transported. In other words, the more his competitors transported, the more Rockefeller earned. They called it the discount system. Whatever you called it, it was a systematic crushing machine. Within a decade, Rockefeller controlled 90% of the oil refineries in the United States. And Rockefeller didn't stop there. He kept track of every worker in the factories, every drop of solder, and every meter of pipe. He didn't track how many screws a single worker could install in a few minutes. Because to him, efficiency was a sacred thing. Wastefulness, on the other hand, was a flaw. One day, he said to an accountant working in the office, "You know we're in his barrel. You have the option of 58 drops of solder to seal the compartment. What happens if we reduce those drops to 37? The accountant laughed. Rockefeller laughed. He had the experiment conducted. And yes, it went down to 37 drops. For this man, money was not the goal, but the means, a tool to optimize the world. But here, too, lay the paradoxes hidden within his vast system. Rockefeller had built such a powerful monopoly that the system he created could destroy him. In 1911, the US Supreme Court broke up Standard Oil into 32 separate companies. It was the greatest antitrust decision in history. Rockefeller must have been devastated, right? No. Thus, he remained the founder and owner of those 32 companies. And as those companies achieved immense profits, even on their own, Rockefeller's fortune multiplied. The monopoly was broken, but Rockefeller grew even richer. That was the irony of the system. It was the late 1990s, and the internet was rising like a king in people's minds. A new company was being founded every day. A new IPO was being announced every day. Stock prices were soaring at unimaginable speeds, and people did what they've always done during bubbles throughout history. They turned off their logic and surrendered to the excitement. There were no changes in that era. If a company's name ended in .com, it was a surefire hit. Pets.com was a company. It sold online pet supplies for dogs. Sounds reasonable, doesn't it? But here's the catch. For every product they sold, including shipping costs, they were selling at a loss. So the more they sold, the more money they were losing. It was a complex impossibility, but they poured hundreds of millions into it. The company went bankrupt within 2 years. But that was just a small version of the story. The real big story was Enron. Enron was an energy company founded in 1985. It operated natural gas pipelines. Just an ordinary company. Then, in the mid-1990s, the management team wanted to try a different approach. Why should I just sell energy? Why is energy being sold? They asked. On paper, it was a brilliant idea. In practice, however, there was a major problem. Enron couldn't generate real profits, but profits were shown on the books. How did it do that? Through an accounting method called mark-to-market. Under this method, when you sign a contract, you can record the profit you expect to earn from that contract in the future as revenue today. Do you get it? Money that hasn't been earned yet, and might never be earned, can be shown as profit today. And Enron did this for a long time. It reported massive profits every quarter. Its stock price soared every quarter. Executives received massive bonuses. Analysts said buy. Journalists wrote innovation leader. Fortune magazine named Enron America's most innovative company 6 years in a row. When the company collapsed in 2001, it turned out that nearly all of its $63 billion in assets were fictitious. Reduced workforce issues vanished. Pension funds evaporated. And the Enron executives, once dubbed the smartest guys in the room, turned off the lights and fled. A few served time in prison. Most carried on with their lives. The system had been designed for those who created it after all. Buying a home is the safest investment. Who hasn't heard that saying? But in the early 2000s, no one in America questioned it, and the banks took note. Here's how the scheme worked back then. Banks issued home loans to people with extremely low credit scores, or even no income at all. They knew these loans might never be repaid, but they didn't care, because they weren't going to hold on to those loans themselves. They packaged those loans. They bundled hundreds, thousands of bad loans together and turned them into a financial product. It was called a mortgage-backed security, or MBS. It sounds technical and reliable. In reality, it was a rotten package. Then these packages were sold to investors all over the world. Pension funds, insurance companies, and government treasuries. Credit rating agencies gave these packages an AAA rating, the highest safety rating. Why? Because they were being paid by those companies. Those packages were nothing more than toxic assets from the devil banks. There was no independent assessment. There was a conflict of interest. In 2006, prices peaked and plateaued. In 2007, they began to decline. In 2008, the Jenga Tower collapsed. Lehman Brothers, a 158-year-old bank, founded in 1850 in Alabama as a cotton brokerage. It had weathered 2 world wars and the Great Depression, but this time, it couldn't survive. On the morning of September 15, 2008, Lehman Brothers filed for bankruptcy. It was the largest bankruptcy in U.S. history at the time. Its assets totaled $691 billion. The world froze. But what happened next? The government stepped in. It bailed out other banks. Trillions of dollars in taxpayer money were transferred. Bank CEOs collected their bonuses, and people's retirement funds never recovered. So is the system working? A little. On paper. But when Credit Suisse collapsed in 2023, when Silicon Valley Bank closed in 2023, it became clear that the same flaws were still present, because the system had modeled itself